suggest is a couple of things. First thing is there is a link in the chat window for the survey. I kindly recommend if you all could fill in the survey, it would be really very helpful. That's number one. And the second thing is, normally we plan to do it in a way that we're going to have a panel discussion and then we're just going to leave this channel open for networking. So let's because of the time constraint, let's try to do both together, right? So let's open the floor now for Q&A. I will be moderating it. I'm going to go through the questions and I'm going to ask questions to the audience, from the audience to the speakers, so you can answer them. All right, so let's get started. And before I start that, I wanted to really introduce my special friend, Michael Bolton. If you could show yourself. It's an honor to have you, Michael. Can you see us? Are you still there?
My camera is on, I believe.
Okay. No, it's not. It's not.
Ah, the wonders and glories of untested software.
All right. So, Michael, thanks for joining us. Honor to have you. For those who do not know about Michael, he's been in this industry more than 22 years, more than 2 decades, lots of experience with respect to anything to do with testing. He's always looked at as one of the, what would be the right word to say? I would use this word teacher from many of the people in the industry, co-author of many books. Thanks to have you with us, Michael.
That's very gracious. In fact, I've contributed to a book or two, but I've not written a single one.
But yeah. So you're modest, but we all know about you. Thanks a lot for joining us. And I'm also very happy, this being our first virtual Testoper meetup. We had attendees attending together close to 100, and then it kind of stabilized to 85, and then now we are still around 70, 72. It's a good turnout, I strongly believe. And we have, like I mentioned, a couple of programs that are ongoing. 2 Codathon programs. One is for the beginners track every Wednesday. It's an Eventbrite, and another one is on intelligent automation track. And I believe there also we have a good around 40-50 people consistently attending. So all these things are good things, and I don't know how I should be able to thank all the volunteers, but I have to thank all volunteers for making this whole thing happen, and including today, whatever that we have done. So there is one more announcement I wanted to make. We have another meetup coming up June 20th, and we're going to talk about cybersecurity. How automation, AI, and ML is going to help doing cybersecurity better than if you have to do it in other means, right? So it's going to be a great topic, and we're going to have 3 great speakers from lots of experience, and a couple of speakers has been finalized. I'll share their details in the Eventbrite. I'm looking forward to see you all on June 20th and help us to make that event as well successful as this event. So having said that, let's start with the questions. Let me go to the chat window. Where is our chat window here? Okay. There is a survey, a kind reminder again, please remember that we are not an event company or a professional event planners. We're just a bunch of crazy experienced guys who wants to give back to the community. We just started this. Just keep that in your mind. So having said that, let me go back to the question panel. Anjali, if you could turn on your video, that would be more engaging. Let me see, how do I go up in the chat window? Just want to make sure.
Hope you can see me now, Kadir. I'm on.
Yeah, I can see you.
And I'm having my coffee, the first coffee since morning. So
yeah, it's a long, Saturday. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
All right. Okay, I was able to go up. That's good. So let me see the first question here. It's kind of. Give me a minute. There's a lot of text back and forth. I'm trying to have a hard time to find the question here. Okay, someone was commenting microservices is amazing and fun. Obviously, it also comes with a lot of complexities. On that context, let me ask this question to the panelist. We have moved from many, architectures have moved from monolithic to microservices, especially in IT, Anjali, as you mentioned, right? So we have been witnessed, and I have witnessed personally many deployments based on microservices. And in fact, it started with virtualization, having those in the VMs, but then now it's gone to a cloud native and complete virtualization. So it introduces a lot of complexity, as we all know, right? So the complexity comes from two verticals. One is from being too many modular things. It's very difficult to manage, right? And then the second thing is, more than 2 or 4 technologies come together to build a product. So considering both the things together, what do you think from your point of view, Anjali? How an individual can be confident that whatever that he's testing and deploying is going to work amidst of all this complexity around him?
Mm-hmm. See, again, the way it's again a very loaded question with a lot of aspects. But see, from my perspective, if I look at microservice, if you consider what is a microservice there used to be long back, right? Even before the whole microservices concept, there used to be something called a minimum viable product, right? MVP. And MVP is something which is not specific to any industry, right? Any time when you are starting anything, that concept minimum viable product, can I launch something which is a minimum viable product and is usable? So I always think that as testers, most of the times we focus too much on if you look at the testing strategy for microservices, I am testing something which is a minimum viable product in itself. And however, when it comes to a complex business scenario, it might be an element to providing something which it takes in and gives out. And again, I like to talk it in this language rather than getting into too much of API and request response. I try to talk it in a very different, like a regular language. But that is what is the microservices test strategy is all about, right? Concept of understanding the minimum viable product, concept of that it takes in something, gives me something. Basically, it gets in a request, it sends a response. And then, obviously, as you get into the deeper technical aspects of it, yes, the service latency, the integration aspects, and the way microservices consumed, right? That is also if we talk about a monolithic application, there is like a very simple consumption methodology of a monolithic application. Somebody sends something, the application returns something. Like microservices are meant to be sitting in an environment where it can be consumed by multiple different channels, and in multiple complex ways, I can still consume that microservice. So then considering that consumption aspect, that how my microservice is going to get consumed. So whenever I talk about testing and quality engineering, and I always try to, whenever I'm talking to my teams and associates, that think about different aspects first from strategy perspective, that if I have to test a microservice, I have to make sure it is the minimum viable product. I have to make sure that it takes in something, gives back something. I have to understand the integration aspects, latency, performance, and I have to understand the consumption mechanisms, that how that microservice will be consumed. As far as I'm covering those 4 broader areas, writing my test cases and concepts around that, and then looking at what all can be automated, I'm doing a good job as a quality engineer.
Awesome.
So that's
Awesome.
how I look at it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I know it's a loaded question. Apologies for that. So there was a question from Michael. So Michael, you should be answering the question, not asking the question. So the question was, please help me understand the everything that is being automated. Can you elaborate a little bit on your question, Michael, so I can answer them?
Well, a lot of people talk about automating everything.
Mm-hmm.
And this is presumably a testing group. So when we talk about automating everything in testing, what is the everything that we are talking about automating?
Okay, all right. So this group, yeah, of course, it's a primarily a testing group, but also it's called as Testoper, right? I kind of explained in the starting what this group is all about. But to answer your question, see, when I explained about automation, what I meant was not from the testing point of view. We do agree that there are certain things that we cannot automate, right? We have to do manual testing, we have to do exploratory testing. All those things has to happen. There are some things that you never can automate. But the automation point of view, what I was referring was, automating the complexity. Like I'll give you an example. If you look at what's happening nowadays, some of the experiences that I personally have. So the bigger systems that gets deployed, right, has multiple components in it. Especially nowadays, the microservice, like she was talking about, system that gets deployed. There's two phases to it. One phase is the product development lifecycle phase. So there is a shift there. Some shift is happening there. So what we are seeing is, you would be amazed in some of the practical examples I've seen, the testing is there, testing skills is very much required, but the test teams are not there anymore. So they are bringing the test skills from the test team to everyone, right? In a microservice architecture. So they are building different sprint streams and they are bringing in the testing skills within that particular sprint team who is building the microservices. So they are able to develop, they are able to test, they are able to deploy, they are able to scale, and they are able to maintain that microservices independently together with other microservices that can provide the end solution, right? So when you, that's from the development point of view. Then when it comes to a deployment point of view, it again goes into the complete monitoring of the microservices, looking at what's happening, because everything cannot be tested before in this complex environment. So in practice, you might find a lot of problems in the live network. How do you find that problem, and how do you identify what is the root cause for that problem, and how do you troubleshoot them, and how do you fix them? How do you bring it back to them in a more closed loop way seamlessly, without involvement of any manual work, is what the automation that I was talking to you about, right? So that's what I actually meant by saying automating the complexity, not from the point of view of testing the product.
Well, okay.
Can I add to that, Kadir, a little bit from testing perspective, very specific to testing.
Sure.
So again, I see there are, when I look at testing, traditionally it has always been like when you look at a tester's mindset, traditional tester's mindset, it is a lot about validating the known, right? Validating the known, something that I know that this is how it should work. Given this test case, this should be the result. That is what is validating the known. At a high level, anywhere where there is validating the known, it is very easy to automate, because you know what is the test step, what is the expected outcome, and most of the times you will be able to find automation and validate the known. Now, with all these digital transformation, complex systems, IoTs, it is not always validating the known. It is a lot about uncovering the unknown, right? Uncovering the unknown. That is where I still believe that while you can apply like chaos engineering, very good example of trying to uncover the unknown, but still the whole exploration aspect or the exploratory aspect of the system or the end user behavior, and if something like this happens, which I have never known how the system behaves, that cannot be automated all the time. So I typically try to divide it in two areas: validating the known versus uncovering the unknown. Validating the known.
Angela, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If it's known, why are you bothering to validate it?
See, it is known how it should behave. Is it really?
Okay. So what you're saying is we understand the requirements.
Yes.
And we're attempting to demonstrate
yes.
that the product fulfills some requirement in some way. Is that right?
From the tester perspective, that if I know, I have given a specification, so I know that this is how the system is supposed to behave. That is what I know. But then I have to validate that known. So that is where one aspect of automation, and then the other aspect is uncovering the unknown.
Well, okay. So I'm still confused a little bit.
Try it.
So let me moderate here a little bit. So I think from my view, Anjali, I completely understand, right? So the way that we, based on our experience, the way that we looked at it is, I mean, we can test, right? We can test, make sure that everything works before deploying. All those things are good, right? But it's possible that we might.
As far as you know, what you're supposed to test.
Yeah, as far as you know, and then you tested it and you did, but because of the complexity of whatever that we have discussed without repeating them, right? There are so many problems that we are discovering that are unknown, and that's happening during the operation side, right?
Oh, Kader, you just said something really important. You mentioned something that makes me excited to hear about. You mentioned problems. This is the first time, other than in one of the Bell conversations, one of the presenters from Bell was talking about, they were talking about monitoring the system on the car in order to identify a problem in the car. Now, they weren't talking about this in terms of testing. They were just reporting the status of the actual car.
Right.
What I think we've been tap dancing around through these whole discussions is what testing is all about, which is testing is about learning about the product. It is about evaluating the product by learning about it through experiencing and exploring and experimenting with a specific focus on finding problems about the product. Now, we saw a wonderful description of something that could work from the Microsoft team. From Anjali, we saw one of the things that Anjali presented, which I quite liked, was the idea of breaking the a very complex system down into a bunch of components, that each one of which can be examined and evaluated. You know, from the Bell people, again, we saw a description of some of the services that are being offered. But what I'm fascinated about as a tester, and what I think other testers need to understand, is that our focus has to be on finding problems in these things, looking for problems, and not demonstrating that something can work okay.
I understood. Our job should be finding problems. So what we have also experienced, Michael, is that you know, as a tester, we have to continuously find, you know, look for problems and you know, improve the product quality. But this complex.
We can't do that.
Yeah. Okay. You know, create a report so the developers are going to fix it, and eventually end result is the quality product. I completely agree. But on the practical sense, Michael, what we are seeing in this complex architecture nowadays is that we are seeing a lot of problems that's happening on the live network, which was not discovered before in the product development lifecycle, right? So this is happening more and more. So what we are trying to do is finding a way. You know, we're using many different ways, right? Technologies, AI, ML, finding a way to discover and predict the problems that we could not find it before during the product development lifecycle, and try to see how we can, find the root cause of it, and even recommend to fix it automatically if you can fix it, or recommend to manual fixing if it has to be done, but do it in a more closed loop way during the operation side, right? So that's happening more and more to improve the quality of experience of the customer nowadays.
Just one point in perspective, right? Yeah. I know that this can get a very, very energetic discussion, but see, while see, there is a fine line between a tester and a quality engineer. In my view, finding defects, tester; preventing defects, quality engineer. So I somehow, I kind of little bit differ from that perspective, that yeah, the only purpose of a tester is to find defects or to find problems. I understand that can be one of the core area of responsibility, but as we move to more agile, high velocity, complex systems, as a quality engineer, I also have to look at preventing defects getting into the system. If I'm somebody who's doing a quality engineer consulting type of role. Yeah, if I'm a person who's allocated that, yeah, this is something that is built now, find out what are the problems. That is one aspect. But specifically, I being in the service industry, most of the times our customers are engaging us when they really want something which is more consultative and something which can lead to prevention rather than detection, always on the quality side. So
Well,
finding defects, very important.
I have a question about it, which is, among other things, how can we prevent as testers now, not as builders? With the builder thing, I think you're right. With the builder thing, from the builder's perspective, we want to build products and we want to prevent problems in those products. The builder can absolutely do that. But as a tester,
right?
As a tester, I don't build things.
Right, and
I mean,
that's why
I build models for the product.
Different term, right? I did not say tester, I said a quality engineer.
Right.
And that is where a little bit difference between a tester and a quality engineer comes in, because most of the time you embed quality engineers during the build phase. You won't bring in a quality consultant or an engineer just at the post build phase. Quality engineers' roles are typically within the build cycle, starting from static testing, right? Testing of requirements, testing of design, making sure that defects are not seeping in from the requirement phase to the design phase, or from the design phase to the build phase. So that whole concept of being a pure play tester versus a quality engineer is the only point and if I look from just the perspective, what you are saying, I completely agree. A tester has to find problems. A quality engineer has to prevent problems. So
see, the way that I look at it, yeah. So the way that I look at it is, like, most of the time the discussions continues because we focus on the person who is playing that role, right? But rather than saying tester, I prefer to say testing, right? There's a difference between saying tester and testing, right? So the testing is important to find the problems. Now, who is going to find the problems? It is not the only tester going to find the problems. He's not the only person who's going to find the problems. Developer can find the problems. Designer can find the problems. Operation individuals can find the problems. So from my point of view, it is the role of everyone in the product development life cycle to test the product, right? This is my view.
All right.
And
so
you cannot say only tester has to test the product. I disagree.
I agree. So what does it mean to test?
Test finding problems wherever you are in the life cycle, find problems.
You look at your requirements from testability perspective. When a business analyst gives me requirements, as a quality engineer, my first role is to see whether that requirement is testable, and that if the requirement is not testable, that is the first problem that I have found. But that doesn't mean that I'm only finding a defect. I'm finding a potential defect because something will be built on a requirement which will not be testable. So
what do you mean by testable? Can you help me understand that?
Something which I validate. Something which I can say that, yeah, this is the input, this is the output, this is how it is supposed to work. And that is where, again, validation of known aspect is there. Now, uncovering the unknown or the unknown problems, that is a very, very different topic. And I can have like a separate 1 hour conversation.
So what we are going to do, Sorry, Anjali. What we're going to do is, as a moderator, right? So let's move on. So this channel is going to be open. So you, me, and Michael will continue discussing on this. I want to move from testing to from the focus some of the questions that are related to the individuals, right? So Testoper is about individuals, how they can become a creative talent. So there is a question asked here, which basically says, what is a learning path for IoT architect? What is the learning path for IoT architect to cloud architect? Tim, can you help us answering this question? I'll repeat, what is the learning path for IoT architect to become a cloud architect?
To become a cloud architect? Well, I know the Microsoft Azure platform has a lot of training, development information. They call it the certification paths regarding Azure. It's definitely worthwhile to undertake some of the training. A lot of it is free online from Microsoft to understand the design of Azure and all the services Azure provides. So I had some preliminary look at the training, and I thought it was interesting. That really, I guess you're learning about what cloud platform like Azure can do, how you can take advantage of it in your IoT solution. Yeah, there's a lot of training. The Microsoft gentleman could definitely get more information about that.
Okay, good. So thanks, Tim. Moving on to another question. Let's focus a little bit on the deployment aspect of it. There is a question to Adarsh. Adarsh is not here. He has some emergencies. He has to move on, but let's see if we are able to answer this question. The question is, if possible, can you elaborate on the deploying ML model on Azure IoT to get real-time outputs for the, in the demo, whatever that he showed. So that's what the question was. He was asking, can you please elaborate deploying the ML model on Azure IoT to get real-time feedback? Anyone in our team can answer? I'll give it a try. So in Azure, Azure Cloud is basically, it abstracts a lot of details and it provides you with a lot of tools that will allow you to do one, use the cloud platform to host your applications, manage them, deploy them, maintain them, whatever. And number two, they also provide a lot of ready-made tools and techniques, tools that you can use to deploy any of the product that you're building, right? So one of the thing that he explained today, Adarsh, was about the platform Microsoft provides to build the IoT product. So when they are providing, if you remember IoT, Adarsh presentation, there was a block called AI and ML, right? So by default, they have lots of algorithms that are pre-trained for you to use them to take some of the outputs that are required for your business logic when you are building the product. But some of them, you will have to train them in the process, right? So that's how I see. And I have seen, maybe if I'm not able to answer too technically to your question, but I have seen, especially in some of the products that I have worked with, AI and ML is really helping us in many different ways, but it happens in multiple different, steps. And the first step is all about analytics, right? So getting all the data from here and there and understand what's happening, right? So that's the first step. And then the next step is, okay, what am I going to do with the data? So I'm going to crunch the data and I'm trying to understand, okay, this particular defect I have received or this particular device is being broken, then what is the impact of that having that device broken? How many customers using my product is not going to get the service because that device is broken, right? So that's the next step, right? Bringing the insight to the data more than analytics, right? And then, okay, these are all the customers are impacted. Now, what am I going to do with this problem to fix them? Right, so that's the third step. I know doing it in real time, that's the third step. And then the final step is about predicting, right? So, okay, I have been seeing this trend happening based on all these data, and I'm seeing some trend is changing. So that means there is an anomaly because this is what I expect to happen, but something is not right. So there is some problem. So, and based on that problem, over the period of time, you will be able to predict based on the trend what's going to happen after some time, some problems, right? It's not really very clear. I've not seen, even though I've worked on some of the products, I've not seen the prediction is 100% true, but you did get some kind of an indication, so you can take some preliminary steps to solve them, right? So that's more or less the answer to your question from my end. If anyone else want to add, please feel free to. Tim, Michael, no? Okay, there's another question here. Okay, let's see. There's a lot of answers more than the question between the audience. It's interesting to see. Let's see.
Kader, Apurva here.
Yeah.
There was one question from the LinkedIn as to how can beginners begin to learn about automation and testing? Where is the starting point?
So again, I'll try to take see the starting point from my perspective. Nowadays again, the times have changed. I see, for me it is like many a times people try to learn automation skill or something like a specific tool, and generally they start from that, which I personally believe is not the great thing to start. There are a lot of good courses on Udemy which start from the quality engineering concept, strategy, and what quality engineering in the next generation is all about, right? So traditional, like the V model concepts, how they are changing and evolving to a much more progressive, flattened quality engineering concepts and things like that. So there are some very good Udemy courses on next gen quality engineering. I think that is a place to start, because to me, like quality engineering is something that comes from your passion for the field and the strategy about quality engineering. Just execution of test automation tool or testing a test case is very, I don't see that will take us to the great success. So I would recommend anybody who really is interested in testing and quality engineering field to start with the concepts, strategy, and what quality engineering is all about. Then get into identify some of the areas that excite you, like what excites you. Does test automation excite you? Does functional validation excite you? Is performance engineering something that you are interested in? Security testing? There are so many different aspects of the overall quality engineering strategy. Then pick up one field and be a technical pro in that field. But before you become a technical pro in performance testing or security testing or automation testing or anything, understand the quality engineering concepts first, understand the big picture, then become a professional in a specific technical field. Udemy is, in my view, is a very good place to start. I have seen some of my like friends, in fact, a couple of ladies who had taken break like for 7 years, 10 years, got on to Udemy, understood some of the concepts, understood automation, and are really now doing some very interesting jobs in the quality engineering field. So I personally see it that as a good platform, but from other than the platform, I still feel strategy, concepts to a specific technical field is the path to a successful quality engineering consultant.
Awesome. So there's one question for Bell. Probably we'll take this as a last question. Then we will open the floor for networking and debates, however long people wants to stay. They can stay. So from that point of view, let's see. Sayan, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So the question is, what is the purpose of using all public clouds, not just one?
Good question. Maybe Tim, you want to answer that question?
Yeah, so that drawing where we showed all the major public cloud providers is just purely to be representative. These are examples. Most clients that I've seen do not use more than one public cloud. For example, Azure. Just for that drawing, it's just illustrative of all the different public cloud providers out there, the major ones. It's not to say that any given IoT solution is actually using multiple clouds. I usually do not see customers use multiple clouds when they do their solution.
And we got to be cloud agnostic, right? We have partnerships with Microsoft and Azure and Microsoft, AWS, and Google. So we don't want to just basically put one cloud partner. We have to put all the partners there. That's the reason why the diagram was there.
Awesome. Thank you very much. There's a lot of questions, but most of them is answered by a person called Dave Jermiquet. Thanks a lot, Dave, for answering many of the questions in the chat. So let's open the floor for any questions anybody can ask and debate, or whatever that we need to do, we can do.
I'd like to offer, Kader, if I may, a slightly different take on learning to test. What I would suggest,
Michael?
yes,
Okay.
the most important thing for a tester.
There is some quality issue. Let me see. Can you guys hear all well?
We can hear
There's
Michael
some-
clearly.
Okay, all right.
Yes,
Now
we
you're
can.
back. Go ahead, Michael. Sorry about that.
It seems to me that the most important thing that a tester can do, and this goes for quality engineers too. I think we have an issue here with not being clear on testing and quality engineering and stuff. To me, a tester is anybody who takes the perspective of looking for trouble, looking for problems. And that problem can be in a requirements document. It can be in somebody's idea of a requirement. It can be in a specification. It can be in a mock-up or a model or a prototype. To me, the tester's journey begins with asking the question, is there a problem here? And to take a perspective that is different from the builder's mindset. The builder's mindset being, I'm going to make your trouble go away. I'm going to make your problems go away. I'm going to make something that ends your troubles. And the tester's mindset, it seems to me, if you're learning to be a tester, if you have an aspiration to become a tester and to learn about this stuff, it seems to me that your first step is to recognize that your job as a tester is to find trouble wherever you look. And that encompasses both what Anjali was talking about in terms of a quality engineer, or somebody who is interacting directly with a running product. So there's a difference between performing a test and test activity, right? Test activity is anything that allows us to determine through thought experiment or actual experiment what a problem is. What I would do is I would seek that out. I would learn to be a critical thinker. I would learn to be a scientific thinker, because so much of what we're doing when we're testing is the creation of actual experiments to run on a product or thought experiments to perform on a product. I agree with Anjali that it is a very good idea to consider the how one would come up with a test strategy. That is to say, how one would analyze a product for the purposes of asking, is there a problem here? So there are lots of different places to do that, but one of the things I must urge people to do is to recognize there's a huge difference between testing the product and checking the build. And I worry that our focus on operations and our focus on building work is displacing our understanding of what I think is most important, which is learning about the product, evaluating the product, learning about it, studying it, using tools to help us, but not putting tools at the center, putting the mindset that our job is to find trouble in these wonderful things that people are trying to build.